Total washout in Parliament's monsoon session. Either it is on the Bihar SIR issue, the special intensive review of the electoral rolls, or it's on Operation Sindur. The opposition has been asking for days that there should be a discussion on Operation Sindur. The government has finally conceded, allocating 16 hours each in the Lok Sabha and in the Rajya Sabha. And now, of course, this other latest issue, which is the resignation of former Vice President Jagdeep Dhankhar in the manner in which it happened. Basically, ladies and gentlemen, the bottom line is this. It takes 2.5 lakh rupees every single minute to run Parliament. Effectively, if Parliament were to work 9 hours a day, then it would take 9 crore rupees to make Parliament run every single day. So far, in the first 3 days of the monsoon session, it's been a complete washout. So that means almost 30 crores down the drain. Literally, the monsoon session, as you can see all around you, both inside and outside Parliament, it is going literally down the drain. The question that you and I need to be asking, tax-paying, honest-to-God citizens in this country, why do we continue to fund this circus? Why do we continue this absolute sham of an exercise called Parliament if it's going to be adjourned without any discussion whatsoever, any bills being passed whatsoever, any business being transacted whatsoever? Just let me give you just today's example. Just today, day 3 of the monsoon session, the Parliament met over 3 separate times, once in the morning, once at noon, and once in the afternoon, over 3 separate occasions, met for a grand total of just 18 minutes. 18 minutes in one whole business day. That's all Parliament met. It would convene. Immediately, the Speaker and the Vice Chair would adjourn the House. It would convene again. Immediately, there would be ruckus by the opposition. They would adjourn the House. Again, it's like a broken record, repeating time after time. And likely the next couple of days too are going to be a washout, because the debate on Operation Sindur, which the opposition wanted and which the government has now agreed to, is only going to happen on Monday. So effectively, the first entire week of the monsoon session has been wiped out. The opposition and the Treasury benches have been at loggerheads. There are several issues that the opposition wants a discussion on. The government has its own view on when and how those discussions should happen, if at all they should happen in the first place. The leader of the opposition in the Rajya Sabha, on day 1, Mallikarjun Kharge, had demanded that all business be adjourned and that Parliament be apprised of the action taken after the Pahalgam attack. The leader of the House, JP Nadda, had responded to that, assured that there will be a discussion, but the timing of the discussion and the manner of the discussion will be chosen by the government. And today the government has confirmed that there will be 16 hours each, both in the Lok Sabha and in the Rajya Sabha. Monday in the Lok Sabha, Tuesday in the Rajya Sabha, 16 hours. So effectively it's going to be spread over 2 days in both the houses. That's the amount of time that's been allocated for a debate on Operation Sindur in both houses. The Congress wants the Prime Minister to personally intervene and to respond, particularly on the point of contention that's been raised on a number of occasions now by US President Donald Trump, claiming that he was the one who brokered the ceasefire between India and Pakistan. The BJP has simply pointed out that yes, there have been multiple rebuttals that India has given so far to Mr. Trump's claims. The PM would likely intervene, but ultimately whether or not he chooses to do so will depend on his prerogative. But he will likely intervene in the debate, both in the Lok Sabha and in the Rajya Sabha. And the third big issue, for which the opposition has been wearing black bands, protesting at the Makar Dwar, so on and so forth, every day now for the last 3 days, is the special intensive revision exercise that's been undertaken in Bihar. That exercise, by the way, is more than 90% complete, as per data given by the Election Commission itself. So what's the point protesting now after 90% of the exercise has been complete? The opposition has been protesting inside and outside Parliament. They want a discussion on the SIR. The government says this has nothing to do with the government. This is basically an exercise that has been undertaken by the Election Commission. So what can the government say about what another constitutional body is accused of doing or not doing? And the government has also said that it is willing to discuss any issue, but it cannot be seen as answering on behalf of another independent autonomous body. I want to first play out the series of reactions that we've received over the last 24 hours and basically come back to that million-dollar question: why should you and I, the tax-paying citizen of this country, fund this tamasha?
प्राइम मिनिस्टर एक स्टेटमेंट नहीं दे पा रहे हैं। ट्रंप ने कितनी बार बोला है 25 बार बोला है। ट्रंप ने 25 बार बोला है कि मैंने सीज फायर करवाया। ट्रंप कौन होता है सीज फायर कराने का? उसका काम थोड़ी है। मगर प्रधानमंत्री ने एक बार जवाब नहीं दिया। सच्चाई है।
जानबूझ करके डेडलॉक बनाया जा रहा है। जब पहले दिन उन्होंने ऑपरेशन सिंदूर और पहलगाम पे सदन को बाधित किया, हंगामा किया, संसदीय कार्य मंत्री किरण रिजिजू जी ने कहा आज बिजनेस एडवाइजरी कमेटी की मीटिंग है स्पीकर साहब के साथ, 16 घंटे उसमें समय तय हो गया। अब स्पीकर साहब जिस दिन करेंगे चर्चा होगी। अगर इसके बाद और विषयों पे चाहते हैं तो कल भी मैं चेयर पे था। मुझे लगता है कि ये आरोप कि हमें बोलने नहीं दिया जा रहा है राहुल गांधी का, ये गलत है। राहुल गांधी सदन को चलने नहीं दे रहा है।
Now, there are several issues which the opposition wants to raise, but the question also is, are they waiting for those discussions, those substantive discussions, which should happen in Parliament? If it doesn't happen in Parliament, where is it going to happen? Now, here's what day 3 of the Lok Sabha looked like, and I want all our viewers to pay very close attention to this. This is the third day of the monsoon session. As is practice, both the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha convened at 11 a.m. We'll look at just the Lok Sabha right now. At 11 a.m., as it does every day, it convened today. It was supposed to be question hour. The question hour started in the Lok Sabha. Immediately, the opposition MPs started raising slogans. This one was against the Bihar SIR exercise. Some of them rushed to the well of the House. It went on for a grand total of 8 minutes, from 11 a.m. till 11:08 a.m. The Speaker, of course, as has always been the case now, simply not able to enforce his writ, his will. He urged members not to carry placards inside the Parliament, but to no avail. Eventually, at 11:08 a.m., he adjourned the House. Then it reconvened. The Lok Sabha reconvened again at noon, an hour later. Again, there were protests by the opposition MPs. They wanted dismissal of all the adjournment motions. In fact, the Union Sports Minister, Mr. Mandavia, introduced a very important bill, by the way. It's called the National Sports Governance Bill, amid all the din and chaos and the continued sloganeering from the opposition benches. Again, the proceedings had to be curtailed. At 12:07, a grand total of 7 minutes from noon to 12:07, again the House had to be adjourned. The ruckus then continued in the post-lunch session when the Lok Sabha convened once again at 2 p.m. This time, it did not even last a full 5 minutes. At 2:03 p.m., the opposition members who were chanting slogans, protesting with placards, they forced an adjournment. The Speaker said the House is being adjourned till tomorrow. So what this basically means is, what was meant to be a full day of business in the Lok Sabha, 8 hours or 9 hours, what have you, a grand total of 18 minutes is what the Lok Sabha functioned for today. 18 minutes. Now, it's pertinent to remember, all of this cost of running Parliament is not free of cost. It's not like the government is funding this. This is being funded by you and I, the taxpayer. So the cost of running the House every single day, every single minute is huge. In fact, every single minute of business or the lack of it to run Parliament costs 2.5 lakh rupees. 2.5 lakh rupees is more than the average salary of a middle-class employee in this country, a middle-class taxpayer in this country. 2.5 lakh rupees per minute. Now, a typical session of Parliament lasts about 6 hours. That's 360 minutes. Any disruption that is caused to this day can cost the exchequer, that is you, me, the tax-paying citizen of this country, as much as 9 crore rupees. 9 crore rupees is what is washed down the drain every single day. There is no business transacted in either House of Parliament. Further, the MPs also get paid per month. They get 1 lakh rupees per month. That takes the total monthly cost to 5 crores and change, 5.5 crores. They're also eligible for an additional allowance of 2,000 rupees per day per MP. So the daily cost of the MP allowance then stands about 10 lakhs or so for all the 543 MPs. The total cost of a disrupted day of Parliament's functioning would be 9.28 crore rupees. And the cost of 6 days, which you can pretty much say that the entire week is going to be washed out, the entire week's cost of disruption would be in excess of 50 crore rupees. 50 crore rupees would have been flushed down the drain because our opposition and our ruling party benches cannot agree on a basic agenda of what should and should not be discussed in Parliament. Let's play out more reactions and I'll go across to our guests.
लोकतंत्र को हुल्लड़, हंगामा और हुड़दंग तंत्र में बदल दिया है। इंडिया ब्लॉक हुल्लड़ ब्लॉक बन गया है। बाहर आते तो कहते चर्चा करो और अंदर चर्चा से भाग रहे हैं कि एक बार टीवी खोले, ये डबल स्टैंडर्ड देश की जनता देखे।
देखिए, मेरी समझ के परे है जब सरकार हर विषय पर चर्चा करने के लिए तैयार है। आप कीजिए ना, सदन तो चलने दीजिए, पूछिए सवाल, सारी बातें हम लोग बताने को तैयार हैं। एसआईआर को लेके जिस तरीके से भ्रम, और ये विपक्ष की पुरानी राजनीति का हिस्सा रहा है, इन्होंने हमेशा ऐसे विषयों को लेकर से भ्रम फैलाने का कार्य किया।
जो डिमांड है, ये डिमांड कभी पूरी नहीं होगी और ये भी नहीं जानते हैं कि इसका डिमांड क्या है। कोई भी इशू लेके पार्लियामेंट को नहीं चलाना, ये इनका टारगेट है और इसी कारण बार बार पार्लियामेंट स्थगित हो जा रहा है।
All right, I want to go across to Tuin Sinha, national spokesperson of the BJP. Dr. Shama Mohammed is national spokesperson of the Congress party. Tuin, the opposition is saying, you're running away. You don't want to discuss the Bihar SIR issue. You don't want to discuss Operation Sindur and Pahalgam, which the opposition has been agitating about for this last 3 days. Finally, you've now agreed to 16 hours on Monday and 16 hours on Tuesday in both houses of parliament. And amidst all of this, there is this whole drama around the former vice president. But the business of running the house is that of the government. The onus is on the government. Why are the treasury benches not able to run the house for the last 3 days? So much so, we've wasted 27 crore rupees of taxpayer money.
Well, good evening, Zaka. Good evening, everybody. From the very onset, we had made it absolutely clear that we are open to discussing every particular issue in Parliament. But, the problem with this opposition is that they can't grow out of their street activism mindset. Parliament runs by rules. You can't force a discussion on a particular day simply because you want it. Next week, for sure, we are having 16 hours of discussion in the Rajya Sabha, next 16 hours of discussion in the Lok Sabha on Operation Sindur. There are 3 important points which Congress party has raised today. And if you allow me briefly, I'm going to address each one of them. I can't imagine, number one, that the leader of opposition is defending illegal voters. The way he has brazenly come out today, 56 lakh illegal voters have been detected. And the way Rahul Gandhi is casting aspersions on the entire process, he's essentially advocating for those illegal voters to be legitimized. Number 2, the number of times they asked that Trump has spoken 25 times. When are they answering? Let me specify it over here that had they have any respect for our DGMO who addressed the first press conference on 11th May when they had made all details of the ceasefire absolutely clear, had they had any respect for the Prime Minister who addressed the nation on 11th May, which again addressed the issue of ceasefire, had they listened to the press conference of the External Affairs Ministry that same week, and had they paid attention to the Foreign Secretary on 18 June who put forth all details of Prime Minister's conversation with President Trump, they would not be answering this question. They are either short of memory or short of understanding. And finally, one final point, they have been, leveling this accusation that Prime Minister keeps traveling abroad every time Parliament is in session. Today, I have with me a headline from India Today dated 1st September 2012, which talks about Manmohan Singh disappearing. The only difference between Prime Minister going abroad when Parliament session and Manmohan Singh is that when Prime Minister travels abroad, he brings glory to the country either by way of higher state honors or by free trade agreement. When Dr. Manmohan Singh, I want to remind you today, when Dr. Manmohan Singh traveled to Sharm el Sheikh in 2009, Parliament was in session, he brought disgrace to the country.
So let me ask Dr. Shama Mohammed, there are 3 or 4 broad issues that the opposition has been saying you want to talk about. You've first talked about, Operation Sindur and Pahalgam. Now the government has said we'll have 16 hours of debate in Lok Sabha and 16 hours of debate in the Rajya Sabha. You're still protesting about it. The Bihar SIR exercise, more than 90% of that exercise is over. And this, by the way, is a matter that concerns the Election Commission. I don't know why you're agitating inside Parliament after 90% of the exercise is over, saying stop the exercise, stop the exercise. And the third one that Tuin Sinha raised about you saying that the Prime Minister is not responding on Trump's claims. the Prime Minister addressed the nation after Operation Sindur. The Foreign Ministry had daily briefings during Operation Sindur. The Prime Minister spoke
Can I
to
just
Trump.
answer? I don't need you to talk. Let me
No,
answer.
one second. Hang on. What do is this?
I've been waiting for so long. Let me speak
Oh,
now.
okay, okay.
I know what you want to ask.
Oh,
Let me
okay.
speak.
So
I know
the
what
kind of
what you're gonna say.
entitlement, the
Oh, okay.
sense of entitlement.
Yeah,
so
what is this? I mean, come on, Shama, be a little professional. Yeah, go on.
because I know what you're going to say. You're going to take their side and you repeat whatever is there. Let me speak. I know what's on your mind, Zaka. So, Prime Minister of India is not Kim Jong-un of North Korea. That you just said the Prime Minister, when you in your beginning, that he might or he might not come for the session to speak on Operation Sindur Palga. Who is the Kim Jong-un? Let's understand. After Kargil, Vajpayee held a special session. After 26/11, Manmohan Singh held a special session. Why not a special session after this? Even when 2G was happening, Manmohan Singh sat through Parliament. Can you say he did not? You are a senior journalist, Zaka. One. Number two, what he says, the Trump is told in 73 days, 25 times that he has done the ceasefire. So Prime Minister Modi has to come out and tell out one statement. Trump is not involved. It happened between us and Pakistan. He can do that? Yes or no? Why is he not saying it? Trump, at the end of the day, is the president of the United States of America. He is not a Tom, Dick, and Harry who's walking here and there. Let's understand that. So we are asking the Prime Minister of India, tell us what is the truth. And he says, you don't trust the army chief. The CDS said, and Ms. Anil Chauhan said that some planes were down. We are not saying which planes. And in a war, it could be our planes are down. It's okay. It's fair. But we also want to know if any of our soldiers died. We want to know their names. They fought for our country against a terrorist state called Pakistan. I want to know. I want to give respect to this person. Number three,
one second. Are you saying the government is hiding soldiers'
Yes,
deaths?
the government is not telling us the truth.
You think in a democracy, if there are dead soldiers, their families cannot be intimated, their bodies cannot be given full state honors? What are you saying, Shama Mohammed?
I'm not saying that.
Then what are you saying?
When the CDS said this, we need to know. Let's tell the truth. If Trump says 5 planes are down, we don't know. We just want the Prime Minister of India to come out in Parliament, tell us what is these. We hear
Okay,
so many
what
things.
are you going to? Can I also ask? What are you going to achieve by knowing how many planes have gone down? What is the objective of knowing that?
It's not about achieving anything. We just in a democracy. For example, when America attacked Iran, all right, the Republicans also questioned Donald Trump. You have to understand that. It's a democracy. I have the right to know what exactly happened. Don't you have the right to know as a journalist?
Allocation has happened. 16 hours on Monday, 16 hours on Tuesday. Please ask all the questions you want to ask. Why are you still agitating about no debate on Operation Pahalgam?
We want
Operation
to know because
Sindur.
first and foremost, why didn't he hold a special session? In an all-party meet, the Prime Minister does not. We don't trust the Prime Minister of India. That's the basic issue. The trust deficit with it. Now let me come on to SIR. In SIR, for example, why didn't the Election Commission hold this 1 year ago? We are fine with that. They say 2003 this happened. In 2003, you did not need 11 documents. Now they don't want voter ID, they don't want ration card, they don't want Aadhaar. Let's understand. But when they want what? Caste certificate and your residency.
Shama Mohammed, this matter went up to the Supreme Court. Two-judge bench of the Supreme Court said, please consider Aadhaar, voter ID card and the third document. And they put out a whole press statement yesterday saying why they're not considering those 3 documents.
Zaka, you're not
You are basically holding up taxpayer money, holding up Parliament
I'm not holding
for
up.
matters that the Supreme Court has already given a pronouncement on.
Zaka, let me speak. Today, 51, we don't trust the Election Commission. Let me tell you, 52 lakh voters have been deleted in Bihar. Out of that, my issue with this is, if 1 year ago you started, if there are any issues, people can go and say, you know what, there is an issue, they can appeal. There is no time to appeal over here.
They have one whole month. Between now and end of August, you have one whole month to challenge if your name is not there in the voter list.
Can I tell you something? The BLOs, I was in Bihar, the BLOs are telling that, you know what, internet is an issue. They themselves have no time. There are a lot of issues. Our country, our country is not America. 1 minute, let me finish.
Tuin, you hail from Bihar. Why was this exercise not carried out 6 months ago? Even in 2003, even in 2003, the last time this exercise happened, the election happened 2 years later. It happened in 2005. Why is the Election Commission in a hurry to have this 3 months before an election?
2 quick points. I'll just come to this, but I'm shocked today. The Congress spokesperson is casting aspersions on the army.
I didn't cast aspersions on the army.
Please understand.
I won't allow you to talk.
Allow me to finish.
Allow me to finish. No, I won't allow you to talk. You cannot
Dr. Shama Mohammed, no, this is not the way. Every time you come on the show, every time the BJP spokesperson is given a chance to speak, you interrupt them. He didn't interrupt you when you spoke. Come on. Let him speak. Let him speak, and then I will give you a chance to rebut, to clear your stand. Let him speak at least, please.
Did you hear the particular sentence where she insinuated that the government could be hiding the death of soldiers? You can refer once again to the same press conference which I had mentioned on 11th of May, where the senior most personnel of our armed forces had categorically ruled out any casualty on our side. Does she not trust our armed forces? Number two, now coming to SIR. It's the prerogative of the Election Commission to decide when they want to do it. It was long overdue. The last time it happened in 2003, but that only explains that we don't have any say over it. We support the fact that SIR is taking place and that it should take place across the country. And mind you, the matter is in the Supreme Court. If they really feel there are anomalies, they can approach the Supreme Court. Why are they trying to derail the whole process? And allow me one example.
Okay. Why should we allow you when
2 years ago, 2 years ago, 22 lakh illegal voters were detected in Telangana. What's the size of the population of Telangana? 1/3 of Bihar. So why, if they were fined with 22 lakh illegal voters...
Once again, by the way, as per data that was released this morning, the total number of electors, 52 lakh voters whose names have been struck off the rolls, 18 lakh of them have died, 26 lakh of them have permanently shifted out of Bihar, 7 lakh have dual, so they're voting in Bihar and they're voting in other places as well. The only people who they were not able to trace were about 12,000 of them. So the
same thing happened in Telangana 2 years ago.
Yeah, but 12,000 is not the same as 22 lakh. So that's the limited point.
There's also a difference of population between Telangana and Bihar.
No, Bihar is a much bigger state. So by that logic, they should have found more illegals in Bihar, which they haven't so far. Anyway, my point, Shama Mohammed, I come back to that fundamental question. You have got the session that you are asking for. You have got the 2 days of debate on Operation Sindur that you want. SIR exercise is being conducted by an autonomous body. Okay, you have issues on that. They will give you a debate on SIR as well. Point is, why are you not allowing the House to function? What is it that opposition MPs, please tell me, what is it that opposition MPs are coming down to the well of the House the minute the Lok Sabha is being convened? What are they protesting? Please tell me.
Zaka, they do not want to answer questions. Now, SIR is very important. For example, in Karnataka, what we have found out is when you give it in paper, the name of the voter is there. But when they digitize it, it is not there. It is changing. So we have asked Randeep Singh Surjewala, the in charge, as well as the Karnataka people have asked time with the Election Commission for the last 3 months. Now, they're not giving time to discuss something very important. That means they're trying to hide something. I do not believe the Election Commission of India is autonomous. I do not believe that. I believe the Election Commission of India is working at the behest of the government of India. Because if they wanted to
you don't trust the Prime Minister or Prime Minister's office. You don't trust
the
judiciary. You don't trust the Election Commission.
I trust the judiciary.
You trust the judiciary.
I never said I don't trust the judiciary.
So the SIR matter, so the SIR matter is pending before the judiciary.
Yes, so judiciary has asked them to use the Aadhaar card, voter ID, in the judiciary. And also, the Prime Minister wanted Aadhaar for everything. When I go to a bank, they said, mobile ke saath Aadhaar karo. Bank account, PAN number ke saath Aadhaar. Now, why suddenly this Aadhaar is not there? Aadhaar was used for everything. I want to know. You want to win elections by hook or by crook.
I have to wrap up. Thank you very much to Dr. Shama Mohammed and to Tuin Sinha. I'm just speaking as a citizen. I have no affiliations with BJP, Congress, what have you. Point is that you and I are funding this tamasha called Parliament that's been happening or not happening for the last 3 days. And it's your money and my money, 30 crores of which has gone down the drain. I don't think any business is going to get transacted in the next 2 days, Thursday and Friday. If at all, we will now have to wait for Monday when the debate on Operation Sindur will begin. So 5 days, 50 crore rupees gone, vanished, down the drain because opposition and government benches can't seem to agree on what to discuss and how to discuss. Anyway, the other big political story, of course, is the fallout of Vice President Jagdeep Dhankhar and the shock resignation that happened on Monday. Now, there is huge speculation of what's going on, what's behind the scenes. He, of course, ostensibly in his official letter said it was health related and that he was resigning because of health advice that was given to him by the doctors. But is there more to it than meets the eye? Was there politics at play? CNN News 18 has learned that things had been brewing between the government and the former Vice President for a few months now. Top government sources have said that the lens has been on Jagdeep Dhankhar's conduct, particularly over the last 8 weeks or so. He not only criticized the government and its top leadership in front of the opposition, but he also did so in private conversations with both NDA and opposition leaders. The issue of Justice Yashwant Verma and his impeachment, that was a huge bone of contention between the Vice President and the Treasury benches. In fact, the Vice President jumped the gun and went ahead with a resolution and admitted a resolution that was moved only by opposition MPs, more than 50 opposition MPs in the Rajya Sabha. Payal has more details on this. So if this was brewing for the last few weeks, Payal, how come no one, at the highest levels went and had a chat with the Vice President and tried to explain to him that, look, we need to be on the same page? Why did things come to such a dramatic conclusion on Monday night that he, tweeted out his resignation?
Zaka, more and more skeletons are tumbling out of the closet right now. It is not for the last few weeks. This has been happening for the last many months. And to be fair to the government was giving him a long rope, precisely because the articulation of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Home Minister Amit Shah has always been that this is a constitutional post. We need to really respect him, and we need to respect this. But multiple times Mr. Dhankhar over the last 6 to 8 months has insulted various ministers. You remember when Shivraj Singh Chauhan was openly humiliated by the Vice President on an occasion on which Shivraj Singh himself had invited Mr. Dhankhar to be part of an agricultural event. That was one major thing that we saw happening in December as well. But since then, Mr. Dhankhar, in private conversation with opposition leaders and very, very shockingly with ruling party leaders, including NDA leaders, has been making certain utterances about the conduct of the government, calling out senior officials in the government is what I can confirm and tell you. That very senior secretaries have been humiliated by Mr. Dhankhar, essentially because they were not fulfilling whatever he was asking them to do. And some of this feedback was reaching back to the government as well. Back then also the government again respected his position and said, let's not make an issue out of this. It's okay, he probably is doing this, in a way in a good faith as well. But when multiple people within the opposition, and let me tell you, multiple people within the opposition, including the recent conversation that he had with certain opposition leaders, have come back and told the government what his utterances have really been. That is something which we are now learning of, obviously, but we've not heard so far at all from any minister or any person in the BJP talk about this. But sources are revealing these details coming out which are very, very shocking. Humiliating multiple senior ministers on the floor of the house in private conversations, putting them under pressure, asking them for a certain thing to be done at a rapid pace. For example, they had changed a couple of cars in his carcade, but he demanded that his entire fleet had to be of a certain brand. All of this is something which he's been putting up, with for quite some time. But it seemed that there was more than just one trigger that actually led to what really happened. And nobody in the government had actually even pointed out that to Mr. Dhankhar. Mr. Dhankhar, on his own will, Zaka, went to the President House, sat there for 25 minutes waiting for the President to come because the President was not prepared for his coming in. And then submitted his letter of resignation. The government had absolutely no clue. The government, like you and me, also learned it from the social media, is what top government sources have told us.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, Payal, for joining us. So clearly the last word doesn't seem to have been spoken on this issue. Let's see what more revelations there are in this entire saga, which of course culminated in the resignation of the Vice President on Monday night in arguably the most dramatic fashion possible. Meanwhile, some business was at least attempted to be transacted in the Lok Sabha today. The Union Sports Minister Mansukh Mandavia introduced what is called the National Sports Governance Bill 2025. The bill aims to overhaul the governance of all sports bodies across the country. It wants to strengthen anti-doping measures, also align with global standards and India's ambition to to host the 2036 Olympics. Although the BCCI does not receive any government funding and is registered under the Tamil Nadu Societies Registration Act, the government has said that the BCCI will still fall under the purview of the new governance framework. What that means is that the BCCI will be liable to answer RTI queries regarding its functioning, its administration, etc. So here are the key features of this new sports bill. Number one, it seeks to establish a national sports board that will recognize and oversee all national sports federations. It also seeks to provide quick dispute resolution through a national sports tribunal, and it will make athlete representation mandatory in all decisions that are being taken. The national sports election panels will then ensure fairer elections. The bill also seeks to transform the government's role as a facilitator, not a controller. The bill recognizes the Olympic Charter as well as international norms for all other Olympic sports. Now, the bill will also place the BCCI within the framework of the national sports federations, which means the BCCI will have to comply with regulations once this bill becomes a law. The BCCI will come under the ambit of the Right to Information Act. The BCCI will have to comply with athlete empowerment, gender equality rules. In fact, sources say that the BCCI was also consulted extensively on the provisions of this bill before this bill was brought forth in the Lok Sabha today.
The bill is entirely unconstitutional. It is beyond the legislative competence of the government. Entry 33 of the state list gives powers to the states to legislate with regard to sports. The government of India has absolutely no power to legislate with regard to sporting federations for the reasons that I have explained. But the bill in its present form is not going to stand the test of law. Insofar as the BCCI is concerned, this is a very clear attempt to bring the BCCI within the ambit of the governance structure which the government is trying to put in place through this National Sports Governance Bill.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has embarked on a visit to the United Kingdom. The focus will be on shoring up trade and defence cooperation with the formalisation of what is the landmark India-UK Free Trade Deal. In his departure statement, Prime Minister Modi said that India and the UK share a comprehensive strategic partnership that has witnessed significant progress in recent years. The UK-India Free Trade Agreement is supposed to eliminate tariffs on 99% of Indian exports to the UK and reduce tariffs on 90% of British imports into India. So what does it mean for you and me? The immediate impact would be seen on some of these sectors. Number one, imported spirits, whether it's whiskey or gin. Tariffs are likely to be halved from 150% that it is right now to 75%. In fact, on whiskey and gin, tariffs may go down to up to just 10% by the 10th year of this deal. So by 2035, imported British alcohol will be reduced to just 10% import duty. Automotive tariffs may also go from over 100% that they are right now to 10% under this quota. So a lot of British car manufacturers, Aston Martin, Bentley, Rolls-Royce, are likely to benefit from this FTA. In fact, the biggest British automaker, which is Tata's Jaguar Land Rover, may also see retail prices coming down. Two-wheeler market, the TVS Motor Company is expected to benefit from the FTA. There'll also be a lot of food products that Britain exports, which could also see a rise in Indian imports. So there could be food products like salmons and shrimp, etc., which could see an import duty cut here in India. As a result, the imports of those products could increase in India.
As I've been saying, the free trade agreement is essentially the substantive negotiations finished on the 6th of May. The scrubbing work is underway. It would, of course, not be proper for me to speculate about when it will be signed. But the important point is the text has to be completely ready for it to be signed. And after that, of course, then we move to the ratification and implementation stage. But it's a good time for the relationship, the trade relationship in particular, and the extraordinary work done by the Commerce Ministry team and all of my colleagues here in the High Commission is a reason why we're in a great position to look at the future of the India-UK relationship.
CNN News 18's Anand Narasimhan is in London. He'll be tracking the Prime Minister's visit. Here's what to expect over the next 24 hours. The Prime Minister will be signing the FTA. He's also expected to call on King Charles, the ruler of, at least the constitutional monarch of the UK. Let's listen into what Anand says we can expect over the next day and a half.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has arrived in the United Kingdom. It's a very, very short trip and largely focused on the Indo-UK trade deal and signing of this trade deal, which has been in the works for nearly a decade and a half, but started gathering steam sometime in 2022. And over the last 3 years, multiple visits over successive governments and various line ministries getting involved, both from the UK and from Bharat, has now resulted into the fruition or coming together of what is a very, very complex deal. The Prime Minister also met with the Indian diaspora, and it was a very soft, quiet engagement. There was no address, etc. But he did meet about 600 to 700 members of the Indian diaspora shortly after he landed. But he's going to be a host, or he's going to be hosted by the British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer at the Chequers. So that's the UK PM's official residence. That's where the Prime Minister is also going to be staying, and most of the engagements are going to be there. The bilateral meetings with the UK Prime Minister and also signing of the FTA. Thereafter, perhaps a briefing by the Foreign Secretary. All of that would happen only around in that area. The Prime Minister, after these engagements, which would last about 3 hours, is going to make a visit to try and meet the King Charles, and that's the only visit to central London that would be. And thereafter, he'll head back and then flies off to Maldives for his engagements there. So that's the next leg of his tour. And from Maldives, he'll head back into Bharat, into Tamil Nadu to inaugurate the Thoothukudi airport. But this is historic, this is landmark, and this underlines at various levels. Automobiles are going to be cheap into Bharat, British-made automobiles. There's going to be a huge drop in the duties. British-made liquor is also going to see drop in the duty terms, and over a period of 10 years, those duties will drop down drastically, especially in automobiles. It will come. There is greater collaboration in technology. The TSI will perhaps create more shape. There will be more labor-intensive approach with respect to industries coming into Bharat to generate more jobs, and historically that's been the case where Indian entrepreneurs have generated more wealth in terms of value, whereas British entrepreneurs have not only generated wealth, but more importantly, they've generated more jobs, and that is something which India very critically wants. But in the long term, the effort will be to not just post Brexit, create UK as a big hub, big market, and take that entire trade to somewhere close to 100 billion. It is less than 50 billion right now, and there is a lot of scope where India can actually help and become an alternative source for the UK. Textiles, there are a lot of people with their hopes up for textiles. If the textiles duties are brought down, then that will give a huge boost and impetus to manufacturing in Bharat, and big competition in the neighborhood that could be negated. Agricultural produce, fruits, vegetables are a great potential, whether that is ink spoken about, we have to wait and watch. Defense cooperation, technology, more importantly, if you look at advanced technology, jet propulsion technology is something which will be very important, and if there are significant deals that are signed there or agreements that are signed there, that will be helpful for both countries. Intelligence sharing, greater cooperation in terms of, although it doesn't directly fall under the ambit of the FTA, but in terms of visa norms, easing of those norms, staying back for Indian students' chances of employment, skilled labor, and also clearly demarking legal immigrants and illegal immigrants.
All right, some international news now is Donald Trump brewing for another fight with Iran. Is a Trump versus Iran 2.0 fight on the cards now? President Trump is warning that America could attack Iran's nuclear facilities again if Tehran does not try and rein in its nuclear enrichment program. Iran has said that it cannot give up on enrichment of nuclear fuel so that it can make weapons-grade uranium. This has been confirmed by the Iranian foreign minister. In fact, Iran is due to have talks with 3 European countries, France, Britain and Germany, later this week. And they are very clearly saying that this has now become a national mission, more so after last month's strikes by both the United States and Israel. So what happens next? Are we now looking at possibly another conflict, another flare-up between Israel and America on the one side and Iran on the other? I dig a little deeper. Iran's deeply buried nuclear enrichment plant at Fordo was badly damaged, potentially even completely destroyed by the 12 massive bombs that the US Air Force B-2 bombers dropped on it last month. This has now been admitted to by no less than the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. And that has prompted a quick response from President Donald Trump, who claimed credit for the American military action against Iran's nuclear sites. Trump, in fact, further warned that Washington would attack Iran again if necessary. Trump's remarks came after Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi acknowledged the impact of the US strikes, saying that the damage to his country's nuclear infrastructure was severe and it was serious.
Can I ask you about Iran? Have you seen any progress in talks with Iran? We haven't really heard about that in a while.
Well, they want to talk. I'm in no rush to talk. They would like to talk. I'm in no rush to talk because we obliterated their site. They'd have to start all over. In fact, it's obliterated to the point that it's not usable anymore. They'd have to pick a different mountain.
However, Araghchi did vow that Iran is not going to give up on its nuclear enrichment program, as it has now become a question of national pride. Iran's foreign minister, in an interview with Fox News, admitted the extent of damage to his country's nuclear facilities was severe, but he also refused to comment on whether any of the enriched uranium managed to survive the attacks. Araghchi has previously reiterated Iran's position that it will not accept any nuclear agreement which blocks Iran's right to enrich uranium. The United States on the 22nd of June joined Israel's offensive against Iran, and it launched Operation Midnight Hammer. The aim was to target 3 nuclear facilities of Iran, namely Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. The operation involved over 100 US military aircraft, including 7 B-2 stealth bombers. It's these bombers that traveled halfway across the world and dropped bombs on Fordow and 2 other most protected nuclear sites of Iran. There were also about 24 cruise missiles which were also launched at the Isfahan nuclear site. These were launched from a submarine by the US military from the Gulf of Persia. One of the major strikes by the United States was on Fordow, which is a nuclear enrichment facility which is buried deep below a mountain right outside Tehran. In fact, Fordow is considered vital to Iran's nuclear ambitions. That's where the maximum amount of enrichment used to happen. At least 14 JBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators, MOPs, or what are commonly known as bunker busters, were dropped at the Fordow site. After the strikes, Israel and Iran agreed to a ceasefire brokered by the United States and Qatar. The 12-day conflict between the 2 warring countries came to a pause on the 24th of June. But there was an ongoing debate over how much these strikes have actually pushed Iran's nuclear program back. A senior Israeli official said last week that these strikes most likely did not eliminate the stockpile of nuclear weapons-grade fuel which Iran had. Estimates suggest that Iran could produce upwards of 10 nuclear warheads using this current stockpile. But without the facilities to manufacture a weapon, this fuel would be of little use even if the Iranians were able to dig it out of the rubble of these 3 nuclear sites. The new assessment helps create a much clearer picture of what the combined Israeli and American strikes actually achieved. The bombings deeply damaged Fordow, which was considered by the Iranians to be their best protected and most advanced nuclear site. It also ended up probably crippling Iran's ability to make nuclear fuel for years to come. Iran most likely still has a stockpile of uranium that's been enriched to 60% purity. 60% is well below the purity level that is usually required for a nuclear weapon. For weapons grade, it needs to be closer to 90%. Now the question becomes, if Iran were to try and enrich uranium again with the express purpose of developing a nuclear weapon, then what will America do? To that, Trump has said, and rather unequivocally, that he would not hesitate from striking Iran again. A threat that he reiterated this week from the White House after evidence emerged of the damage left behind in Iran. With much of Iran's air defenses destroyed, Israeli or American forces could almost at will attack again, and that would stop any reconstruction efforts by Iran. A senior Israeli official repeated last week that the country was prepared to mow the lawn, a suggestion that Iranian sites could be attacked once again. Iran is not giving up on its ability to enrich uranium again. Iran will be holding nuclear talks later this week with Britain, France and Germany. In fact, this was confirmed by the Iranian media. Those talks are likely to happen in Istanbul. Those European countries had threatened to reimpose UN sanctions on Iran by the end of next month unless there was progress on a deal in which Iran would agree to limit its nuclear program. The nuclear talks will happen likely in Istanbul later this week, but Iranian officials have played down the prospect of restarting any direct negotiations with the United States. Clearly, they don't want to be seen as cowing down to Trump's threats. Before the attacks, Iran and the United States, via their mediators in Oman, had held up to 5 rounds of talks. This one, Britain, France and Germany, they are still part of the 2015 nuclear deal with Iran that was also signed by the previous Obama administration, and there was also the signatories of China, Russia and the European Union there. That 2015 deal included a procedure which was called snapback sanctions, which would be reimposed on Iran if it was deemed to be violating nuclear provisions. President Trump pulled out of that very deal during his first term, and he has vowed never to go back again to that deal. Iran maintains its nuclear program is only for peaceful purposes. But some in the Iranian government, now after these strikes, are also viewing the nuclear option, that nuclear weapons are a deterrent against possible attacks by Israel or by the United States. Now, Iran's concerns have likely grown manifold, particularly after the military strikes last month. Western countries fear that a nuclear-armed Iran would further destabilize and increase tensions in the Middle East. A non-nuclear Iran is in the best interest of most countries in the Middle East, including Gulf Arab nations. So it's not just Israel whose very existence is threatened by Iran and its ability to make a nuclear weapon, but also some of the traditional Islamic countries in the Gulf Peninsula and the Gulf Arab Committee of Nations would also be happier without Iran having the ability to produce a nuclear weapon. Japan's long-governing Liberal Democratic Party, or the LDP, suffered a shock defeat in parliamentary elections that happened on Sunday. It also saw new right-wing populist groups make significant political ground. This could see a tectonic shift in Japan, a country that has been one of the world's most stable democracies. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has vowed to stay on in his post after his Liberal Democrats and their coalition partner lost 19 of the 66 seats that were up for re-election.
いつまでという期限を今考えておるわけではございません。先ほど申し上げましたように、アメリカの関税措置、あるいは物価高への対応、明日起こるかもしれない自然災害への対応、そして戦後最も複雑で厳しい安全保障環境、このような喫緊の課題について解決の道筋をつけると、全力で対応すると、そのことを申し上げておるところでございます。
Now this means that the ruling party no longer controls the upper house of the Diet or the Japanese parliament. Now the ruling party is in a minority in both houses of parliament, and Prime Minister Ishiba is running a minority government in coalition with other parties. So much so, after Sunday's shock defeat, he's facing calls to step down after the setback wounded the Liberal Democrats, who have led Japan for all but 5 of the last 70 years. Ishiba and his party failed to convince enough voters that they were the party that could help resolve a host of challenges. The biggest concern was rising prices of staples like rice. There's also the tough tariff negotiations that are going on with the United States, and the growing burden that young people in Japan have to support an aging population and the kind of stress that this has placed on the working age population. The election results exposed a growing generational divide that is altering Japan's politics. The biggest gains were made not by the traditional liberal opposition, but by a gaggle of new parties that drew younger voters with stridently nationalist messages. Among them was Sansito, a populist party led by a politician inspired by President Trump of America. Many are calling the leader of Sansito Japan's Trump. For the first time, we are seeing far-right populism, similar to what we've seen in America and in Europe, also rise in Japan. Before all the votes had been entirely counted, powerful members of the governing party, the LDP, were already calling on the Prime Minister Ishiba to step down and take responsibility for what was a poor showing by his party. In fact, Taro Aso, who's a former deputy prime minister, has said on record that he could not accept Ishiba staying on as prime minister. Mr. Ishiba has conceded defeat in a television interview late Sunday that the Liberal Democrats had not done well, had not done as per expectations, but he said he had no intention whatsoever of resigning. He said he still has important work to do, and that includes reaching a trade deal with the Trump administration, which Japan has failed to do so despite repeated rounds of talks. In fact, Trump slapped 25% tariffs on Japan bang in the middle of the campaign, something that hurt Ishiba and his party.
我が自由民主党、そして与党公明党、多くの優位な同志の方々、議席が得られなかったということは痛恨の極みであります。自由民主党総裁として心より深くお詫びを申し上げる次第でございます。
But analysts say that Prime Minister Ishiba could struggle to find support within his party, particularly so because this is the second defeat in the last 1 year. Last year, the Liberal Democrats lost their majority in the lower house, which is the house which directly elects members of the parliament. And now this year, they've also lost their majority in the upper house. If Prime Minister Ishiba is forced to step down, it could create a political paralysis at a time when Japan faces an increasingly assertive China. There's also the ongoing tough tariff negotiations with Trump and with America. The biggest winners from Sunday night's vote were two new nationalist parties, the Democratic Party for the People and Sansito. The Democrats gained 13 seats, more than doubling their total presence in the upper house. They're now up to 22. Sansito, which is a newer and more extreme party, also won 13 seats, bringing their total to 15. Both parties managed to win over younger voters in Japan with populist appeals. They said that they will strengthen the military. They will also cut a consumption tax that has been paid for pensions and other costs to support Japan's growing population of senior citizens. Sansito, which had barely been a presence in the national politics of Japan, rose almost overnight with promises to put Japan and Japanese first. The party called for stopping an influx of immigrants who fill jobs that have been left vacant amid Japan's declining birth rate. But Sansito says that these foreigners threaten Japan's social stability. Japan has about 3 million or so foreign-born residents, which is still much less compared to immigrants in Europe or in America. Sansito was born on YouTube during the COVID-19 pandemic. It spread conspiracy theories about vaccinations, about a cabal of global elites. The party broke into mainstream politics with its Japan First campaign. Sansito became the talk of town, and particularly both in America and in Europe, because of the whole populist and anti-foreigner sentiment that the party stood for. The party's leader, Sohei Kamiya, a former supermarket manager and an English teacher, told Reuters before the election that he had drawn inspiration from the US President Donald Trump and his bold political style. He's also drawn comparisons with Germany's AfD and Reform UK, although right-wing populist politics is yet to take firm roots in Japan, much like they have in Europe and in the United States. In fact, he also controversially suggested that the Japanese emperor must go back to the pre-World War II tradition of keeping concubines, and that women should stay at home and raise children and not work. Voters interviewed at polling stations in Tokyo and other cities said that while some of these populist policies were too extreme for them, they wanted to protest against the ruling party, the Liberal Democrats. They say the LDP has lost touch. It is out of touch with the mainstream of Japan. Most of the people's anger was about rising prices of staples, particularly rice. Eventually, this may be more about teaching the ruling party a lesson more than the rise of right-wing populism in Japan. The next few weeks in Japanese politics will be worth paying close attention to.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
16-hour debate on Operation Sindur has been scheduled for next week in the Parliament. This was announced by the Business Advisory Committee after strong demands from the opposition. But Rahul Gandhi continues to question Prime Minister Modi on his silence particularly on the mediation that has been claimed as coming from America, as has been made in several claims by the President of the United States.
बहुत बड़े प्रॉब्लम्स हैं जो हम डिस्कस करना चाहते हैं। डिफेंस के प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, डिफेंस इंडस्ट्री के प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, ऑपरेशन सिंदूर के प्रॉब्लम्स हैं। हालात अच्छी नहीं है, पूरा देश जानता है। जो अपने आप को देशभक्त कहते हैं वो भग गए, राइट। प्राइम मिनिस्टर एक स्टेटमेंट नहीं दे पा रहे हैं। ट्रंप ने कितनी बार बोला है? 25 बार बोला है। ट्रंप ने 25 बार बोला है कि मैंने सीज फायर करवाया। ट्रंप कौन होता है सीज फायर कराने का? उसका काम थोड़ी है। मगर प्रधानमंत्री ने एक बार जवाब नहीं दिया। सच्चाई है, छुप नहीं सकते।
Take this across to my colleague Pallavi. Pallavi, finally a 16-hour discussion that has been announced. This is what is coming out of the BAC. But Rahul Gandhi is steadfast in crying foul. This time he's going after the Prime Minister. He is also talking about the several announcements that have come in on part of US President Donald Trump on having made that attempt to mediate between India and Pakistan. Which way do you see this headed, Pallavi?
So during the Operation Sindur discussion, first in Rajya Sabha on Tuesday for 16 hours and most likely before that in Lok Sabha for around 16 hours itself, I think the focus of the opposition parties will be one. Why is it that constantly the American president keeps on staking claim as far as brokering a ceasefire is concerned, and we want the Prime Minister to respond to it. So far, no clarity coming in from the government whether the Prime Minister will be able to be present there or whether he is actually going to be responding. So that is one point over here. The second point that they are raising is that where are the terrorists? Where are they missing? Why have they not yet been nabbed? This is going to be the frontal attack coming in from the opposition towards the government. The government, of course, has said that it's an ongoing operation. There's a sensitivity matter involved. And it's not the first time really here. Every time the government has made it clear that there is no question of the ceasefire being brokered by America. This is something which Pakistan wanted. We gave it to them. In fact, the DGMO called up pre-lunch. We could not take that call. We spoke to them post-lunch, and that is why we conceded to the demands, but they are on a wait and watch. Both the sides clearly will not accept each other's debate, but finally, next week is when you're going to see the discussion take place on post-Operation Sindur developments.
The fact that it has been decided that this debate is going to happen, it is going to continue through these several hours. By that time, I believe the Prime Minister is also going to get back. Would we see and can we expect the Prime Minister to speak on the floor of the House? And that question, I'd like to take this to Arunima, who's also with us on the broadcast. Arunima, if you could have heard that question.
So as far as the Prime Minister, I beg your pardon, Prime Minister responding to opposition is concerned, that is one demand from the Congress party on which they have been unflinching. So far, the indications from the government is that Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh is going to respond to the debate on Operation Sindur. That is what, we got an indication when he actually stood up in Lok Sabha also on day one of the monsoon session, and also made that point that I am willing, all government is willing to look at all your demands and discuss everything, let the House function. Prime Minister coming and answering the Congress is demanding, because they say this is the precedent. When 1962 war happened, it was Jawaharlal Nehru who took the House into confidence. Indira Gandhi did the same after 1971 when Bangladesh was created. And Atal Bihari Vajpayee, a Prime Minister who belonged to Bharatiya Janata Party, he too spoke up when Kargil happened. So why should there be a departure from convention is what the Congress is saying. But the government so far, every time there has been a demand that the Prime Minister speaks out, their stance has been that Prime Minister will speak when he has to, but it will not be.
Viewers, look at your screens. Right in the middle, viewers, are a bunch of individuals who are protesting for 3 days, 3 straight days. Viewers, for 3 straight days, the opposition parties have stood